Hello. Um, Welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Welcome to Breakthrough Spotlight. My name is Suzanne Herrera-Lapuma, and I'm the ACLS Leading Edge Fellow and Visiting Scholar at Breakthrough, a nonprofit organization that uses media, arts, and tech to advance gender equity, racial justice, LGBTQ+, and immigrant rights. I encourage you to visit our website, letsbreakthrough.org, to learn more about our media campaigns and our current initiative, Our Stories in Vivid Color. You can also follow us on Instagram at Breakthrough TV, and I am calling in from Brooklyn, New York, which is on the unceded homeland of the Lenape people. In the series of conversations, we're exploring how storytelling can be a transformative act with Alexandria Eregbu. And we're going to ask how artists reimagine storytelling and its transformative potentials. What is a story? How can the act of storytelling transform oneself, one's community? And what are some of the multiple artistic or embodied forms of story that storytelling can take? So today we welcome Alexandria Eregbu, an Igbo-American artist whose multidisciplinary practice we're exploring through a studio visit, which is really, really exciting, and a conversation. We'll be talking about how memory and material legacies might be activated by and participate in transformative storytelling practices. So welcome, Alexandria. We're so thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you. Grateful to be here.
I will just read a little bit of your bio, if that's all right, to introduce you to everyone who's joining us today. Alexandria is an award-winning Igbo-American artist whose work seeks to inspire. As a scholar, Alexandria studies craft legacies and material histories in order to consider everyday use objects and experiences that dignify Black life. As an artist, Alexandria works with prints and dyes, indigo, wood, cowries, shells, cloth, and collected items to generate writing, painting, sculpture, installation, performance, and other time-based media to engage nature, design, memory, ecology, and the spiritual. So yeah, I'm really excited too. We have so much to go through. Your writing has been published extensively, including at the University of Chicago. Your artwork has appeared on screen in Candyman 2021, directed by Nia Da Costa, and you have presented your work internationally in partnerships, including the College Art Association of America, Expo Chicago, Soho House, the Center for Afrofuturist Studies, Poets House, Casa Rosada in Salvador, Brazil, and the Contemporary Art Center in New Orleans, among others. And I just also wanted to let our viewers and listeners know that you've worked on a lot of initiatives supporting engagement with the arts as an educator, with community-based initiatives supporting teen activism and leadership in Chicago. And later in this talk, we're going to discuss your position as a curator for the Envisioning Justice Project, which is a citywide and programming initiative Chicago, which features the voices and artwork of local artists, collectives, leaders, and community organizers who came together to address the failures of the US criminal justice system and how mass incarceration impacts Chicago communities. So Alexandria, we're so pleased to have you with us and talk about your work and all the work that you've been doing.
Thank you, Suzanne.
So here we are in your studio, and you have many different media you work with, and you also use storytelling and transformative storytelling in so many different ways. So yeah, where should we? I think I just would love to start with. I know you have a project you're working on that you feel like has really close ties to storytelling. So will you share a little bit about that project?
Yes. So I believe you are referring to my most recent film, The Reason Why We Hunt, prologue for larger bodies of work, Amiri Origin Stories. And this film takes place here in Chicago. It was something that I call being co-authored by myself and my ancestors. It talks about this main character, Nana, who sort of receives this download from her spirit guides about the creative process and this history, this ongoing history of Black and Indigenous peoples' creative faculties essentially being co-opted. And so the ancestors sort of start with this major question, asking, what if the greatest crime committed against humanity was a robbery of the senses? And so within this film, Nana goes on this search or this hunt for these symbols. In the last slide, were featured 4 major sort of elements that kind of work as symbols throughout the text or the film itself: the compass, the mask, the knife, the photograph, and one of my favorites, the mirror. So yeah, she kind of proceeds through this walk with the lakefront and through the forest and meditation, and is, yeah, receiving this thread of dialogues that are coming from her ancestral guides.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you. And thanks for sharing. How did the process of like working on this film enable you to think about the transformative possibilities of storytelling?
Yeah, so this is, I should mention, one of my very first film project. You know, this prologue is actually the introduction to a much larger body of work. And one of the things that was most surprising to me was the process and that took place for me to actually writing the script. To my mind, I thought that I was going to be just, you know, writing this story, and the idea for this story, um, and the characters were something that were going to entirely come from me and my research as an artist. I thought it was going to be pretty straightforward. As you mentioned, I have been working in like research and scholarship for some time now. So I thought that, you know, the stories that I had read in textbooks and academia were what was going to be what informed the work. But actually, contrary to what I had thought, I noticed just this other sort of presence that was with me in the writing process. And that's what I sort of have identified to be that ancestral sort of spirit. And it's, I won't speak too much into how, like, I know that it's there, but it is just sort of this sense that when I'm writing, every now and again, it'll almost be like a grandmother sort of figure that a voice that is not mine that will join me and start asking a series of questions, or will share, you know, just some, in a very proverbial way, just some conclusions about some of my own questions that I might have about my current reality. I think you're muted.
I am muted. Were you surprised? Thank you for sharing that. And were you surprised by that kind of arrival when that happened?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've been writing for some time, and up until that point in 2020, you know, also at the turn of the pandemic, when we all were isolated and spending a lot more time, more or less by ourselves and inside, I had never experienced anything like that. And I think I do attribute like this shutting down, if you will, of the globe and of my city, to some of the reason why I was able to kind of slow down and surrender to this stillness and listen a bit deeper to, yeah, just the energy that was encompassing my environment, and the work, what it wanted to say. You know, as I've learned working with materials, materials speak a language of their own.
Right.
You know, when it comes to storytelling, like, materials are their own storytellers, if you will. And I suppose with this script writing process, I realized that storytelling incorporates more than just the person who has the pen or has the pencil or who's behind the laptop, right? Like there's all of these other influences that go into the writing process. And yeah, this was definitely a moment that renewed my relationship to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it also, I mean, I know that you were working with this series as like kind of getting in touch with certain older stories to begin with, and then that also in a parallel work with material, you've been working with textile and indigo practices. Can you talk a little bit about those? Because I've heard you talk previously about the way those materials are stories and storytellers as well. And I'd just love to hear you share about a little bit about that. And I know we're in your studio, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll walk you all to a couple of works in progress that I have over here.
Great.
Let me flip my camera. Oops.
I will also mention, this is our premiere time getting to do a studio visit. So we're excited to use the technology this way.
Yes. Welcome you all. I'm not sure why the camera flipped. Hold on.
All right. Yeah, take your time. We'll just thank you for that. Yeah, we'll just wait for the technology to catch up. I caught a glimpse. We're very excited. I mean, I heard you talking about this work at a talk you gave at CUNY, which was thinking about the connections between ecology and memory and like longer histories of craft that traveled, across the Atlantic from West Africa to the United States. Here we are. Okay, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, so I've been working with this material, indigo, for about 5 or 6 years now. Indigo is a natural dye and pigment that comes from a plant. Indigo is also what a lot of people, maybe more people, are starting to remember or know now, is that indigo was one of the primary crops that actually contributed to the industrialization movement here in the United States.
Oh, wow.
It
Yeah.
was used by the hands of enslaved African people, and it was something that grew naturally in the southeastern states of the United States here, primarily in South Carolina, Georgia, a little bit in Florida. But it's also something that's grown. There are several dozen variations, at least, of the indigo plant. Is something that African people were already familiar with, having grown that back home in West Africa, Nigeria, Mali, Burkina Faso. So I've been using this as a material in attempt to kind of summon or kind of conjure that memory. I'm really interested in the sort of older traditions and working with craft, feeling like trade and these types of craft-based skills are something that have been dying away as we get into the higher timelines. And this connectivity with the land, I think, is so central to Black and Indigenous people's sense of identity here. And so I've been working on these series of drawings. This is a more finished piece that I have here on the floor. And then I have a couple of works in progress here that are kind of attempting to activate that memory.
And can you just share a little bit about that process of dyeing, of how you're using the
Yes,
indigo?
absolutely. So the process of dyeing is quite simple. I have a little station that I use over here. When I'm in the studio, I actually dye mostly at my job now, but it's very simple. You'll use this pot, you'll use, this is some actually pre-reduced organic indigo. There is like a fermenting agent. You can, there's a lot of things you can use to ferment the indigo. Something as simple as yeast is also able to be used. But basically, you're heating this indigo into the pot. You add your fermenting agent. You let that get to your desired temperature. And what happens is once that fermenting agent touches the indigo, it creates this like oxidization, which allows for the pigment to stick onto the cloth or whatever material it is that you're using to dye.
Amazing.
And
Okay.
yeah, it's like this, basically the material is alive, if you will. And so that's something that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I had no idea, and yeah, and also that it's yeah, that you're using some of the materials you use like for cooking. You know, that's some of the
Mm-hmm.
same implements that you would use to cook. Yeah, that's so incredible. I know yeah, I mean, I know you're telling us a story that obviously you've been doing research work on, and I know this work and some of your other work has a research component to it. What is it like for you to be moving across between those realms of doing sort of like research-based work and then moving into these more like tactile and sometimes nonverbal practices?
Yeah, I'll say in one word, it's dizzying. I think, a deeply intuitive worker. And so I have to move with where my feelings are at. Um, in some cases, like the natural flow of things, it makes sense for me to work with, yeah, text or sort of work in the research when I have questions about specific things as it relates to the past. I think that's really where I lean on the research. But when it comes
Mm-hmm.
into the present moment and distilling like what it is that I'm feeling in the here and now, that's where I really lean into textile art and painting and drawing to really, yeah, kind of work out that energy.
Yes, that makes sense. And I love seeing these pieces in different contexts, and also seeing them in process, like in progress.
Yeah.
And like we're looking at a more finished piece here installed in, um, in a more final form.
Yeah.
Um, are there, I mean, I don't mean for this to be a yes or no question, but are there storytellers who are important to you, or are there storytellers who are important to you that you want to share about, just
Oh, absolutely.
in this process? Yeah.
Yes, I've got to shout out my grandmother, Valerie Carr. I've got to shout out my mother, Erica Eregbu. I've got to shout out actually my father, Obina Eregbu. I need to shout out my great grandmother, Leva Mae Shelton. Um, my sister, Erin, is also a fabulous storyteller. And then, I'm in terms of other writers and folks that I'm really paying deep attention to, other artists. I think of Alice Walker. I'm really loving the work of Faith Ringgold these days. Um, Also, highly inspired by artists like Sanford Biggers. Um, and the work of Verna May, who wrote this really incredible cookbook. It's called Vibration Cooking, or The Travels of a Geechee Girl. And she
Nice.
uses this wonderful model of integrating familial recipes and her own storytelling all in this small, condensed little black book. And it's been a high source of inspiration for me these days.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, food is absolutely a form of storytelling for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, I would want to talk to you about all of this so much more, but we have more to talk about next time. Next time we can continue. Um, in addition, because you are doing so many things at the same time, to all of the, your artistic practice and research, you recently in 2018 and 2019 were a curator for a project called Envisioning Justice, Envisioning Justice, that was based in Chicago. So that was addressing the impact and harm of carceral and criminal justice systems in the city. And can you introduce us a little bit to that project and just talk about what it meant for you to be a curator in that project and what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I can say really is that it takes a village. I I think I came into that project rather, I want to say green, but at the same time, like there's so much richness in being and I say that to say that like being a new sprout, like offering so much potential, right? I think that that's what I was able to bring to the table with this project. The project itself, Envisioning Justice, involved a few different components. The first was this partnership with 7 community partners or sort of neighborhood liaisons. And additionally, it also involved the commissioning of artist projects who worked also in collaboration with these community partners. I'll name them out loud very quickly. The Breathing Room Space in the Back of the Yards neighborhood, Bright Star Community Outreach in Bronzeville, Open Center for the Arts in Little Village, BBF Family Services in North Lawndale, Circles and Ciphers in Rogers Park, Just Art in Cook County Jail, and Free Right Arts and Literacy, who ran programming in the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center. And so between these community partners who really were they were our experts to a degree. Like these are the people in the city that have really been doing the work. In collaboration with the commission artists and the expanded perspectives artists, who we curated an exhibition as well as some programming and workshops that took place at the School of the Art Institute's Sullivan Galleries downtown, where people from all different backgrounds were invited to engage in this conversation and think about how we can imagine a world without prisons. The project itself was a huge undertaking. We were able to realize this body of work in about 18 months' time. And I will just say, like, overall, I'm super grateful for it. I will encourage you all to sort of look at the slides and look through the list of names. We curated a huge ephemera of different types of artwork. We felt it was really important to ask this question of what it is that we mean when we ask for or envision justice, meaning that, like, everyone's vision of justice is not the same, right? Like, we realized very quickly, myself included, that there are no assumptions that could be made about how we got to this vision, and also that room for multiplicity needed to be created as often as possible. And so we're very grateful to be able to house this body of work at Sullivan Galleries, which is a 10,000 square foot space where this idea of the multiple, this idea of pluralism, right, kind of defying the binary was able to be executed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you were talking about working with the community partners, that was one of the first things that came up, which was like this question of what does it mean to envision justice has to be opened into the multiplicity of perspectives that even asking that question entails. It's like, well, what does this term mean? And that kind of opened onto a project that wasn't about like, okay, well, we know what some next step is or this or that, but that it was actually just really radically opening that question and creating that space. Yeah. Do you, from thinking about that time, can you just talk about what I know you said, I mean, the community partners were really at the center of this project, right? So each of those organizations was doing really important work, and you know, you were spending time with them in different ways, and other people in the project. And can you just talk a little bit about that experience? Because that seems like that was really at the heart of what I mean. And of course, the beautiful exhibition that came out of it. But some of that, those durational labor, doesn't always get sort of translated into the final moments.
Absolutely. I think that a few things, like me being a Chicago native, right? I was born here. I have 3 generations of family living here. This position, working with the community partners, just also keeping in mind that I was hired as an independent contractor, right? So like even my time in this job was temporary, but all to say that it gave me the opportunity to deepen some relationships with folks that may have already been a part of my community, to really also ask questions about how we can better support those folks who are really, and collectives who are really doing the work beyond just these one-offs that exhibitions often are, right? It also gave me the opportunity to really level the playing field with how we consider the impact of community leaders, community organizers, grassroots organizers, in relation to those who have affiliation with more formal training or institutions, right? So looking at budgets, making sure that people are getting paid equally, I had the opportunity to kind of, I know my official title was as curator, but I really thought of myself through the lens of the artist. And as an artist, having experience being considered often last, even though oftentimes what artists bring to the table is, quality experiences that uplift the vibrations of their environment and their surroundings. It's like thinking about like what my greatest hopes and dreams and desires might be, being in that position and having the opportunity to like have those conversations with these amazing leaders and practitioners that are here in our city who are doing the work every day and asking themselves and one another this question of how we can make really our city safer, and a more joyous place to live. Like it was a complete honor. If I'm being honest, I learned, I think, a lot more than what I gave. And I think that, this is one of the realities of this social justice work, right? Like the role of the curator, the root of that title comes to the word curar, which means to heal. So I think about that every time I'm presented with an opportunity to sort of bring people in the room together. What are those areas, those sore spots that could benefit from some healing? I think our community leaders really helped with getting closer to maybe some answers or solutions, and maybe also not always the answers. Maybe sometimes it's just better questions so that we can continue doing the work.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think hearing you talk about just spending that time, and also that a kind of healing emerges out of creating this, or the possibility emerges in this process of creating space, or holding space across community, and that work happening, happening over time. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to absorb all the all the pieces we talked. The project. We talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were talking about this interview, and I'm curious if you have like a memory from that time that you would be willing to share. I know you'd said that some of the work that you were doing, you actually drew on some training that you had as a team facilitator and educator, and that that's I just wanted to sort of open that, or if there were any other sort of memories from that project that came forward.
Yeah, youth ministry, like working as a youth educator, is something that is near and dear and close to my heart. We did work with a community partner in Rogers Park, Circles and Ciphers, who brought that expertise in sort of circle keeping into actually their exhibition installation that they had at the show. But I will say, like, if I were to do a project like this over, which the likelihood is very small, but I will just say that I would have loved to bring more of that youth spirit into the involvement and engagement of the show. I think if there's anything that I've learned over the years from working with young people, is that they really are the future, and their visions and ideas of how to make the world a better place are much more exciting, much more innovating than any of us adults. I mean, I just have to say it, so.
It's the secret of being an educator. People think like, oh, you're such a giver. And I'm like, actually, I'm just constantly getting.
Constantly receiving, yes, and being poured into. Yes, absolutely. And it is, just one of the tremendous blessings that I think our young people offer to our daily lives. That's why they definitely need to be, protected and uplifted and just held very nearly and dearly and close. So I'm very passionate about our teens here in the city, and would love to see them in more leadership roles, to be honest, and a part of this process, an active part of this process.
Yeah, thank you absolutely. And, I think part of what, very indirectly, part of, I came to this talk with you around an initiative that Breakthrough's doing, trying to center stories of BIPOC youth, teenagers from 14 to 24, young women and gender nonconforming youth, and thinking about like the transformative potential of giving time and space to those stories, giving cinematic time, giving our time, and this maybe you've already answered this question, but I think I think, is that maybe one of the ways that you think about the Envisioning Justice Project in relation to transformative storytelling? Or I don't know, how do you think that transformative storytelling was like part of that project? And
Sure.
How
I mean, I think that I kind of answered this question with just the thought that, storytelling involves, transformative storytelling, I think, involves a lot more than just the singular author. And I think transformative storytelling also does the due diligence of naming those other voices that are in the room with the person who is, distilling or circulating the story. And so, yeah, I say this to you all as I say it to myself, just asking the question of how we can all be better stewards of, naming those people who are not always in the room with us, but who are deeply a part of the process, I think is, something that needs to be done.
Absolutely. And in some ways, yeah, I appreciate that you've been trying to name that. And then also just even in your practices of listening and receiving what presences are with you, that some of that work can happen on so many registers at once, both like, research levels and partnerships, but also receiving, in the senses, like your work around the senses, I think is you're really inspiring in that direction. Alexandria, we would love to talk with you so much longer, and we are so excited about all the work you're doing. Before we wrap up, it's just such a privilege. I just want to hear about any projects that are coming in the future, their work that we can look forward to, or things that you're excited to share.
Yes. I guess the best way to stay in touch with me is to check out my website at alexandriaeregbu.com. Follow me on IG at Alexandria Eregbu, or at Finding Ijoma. I think down the pipeline, I'll be releasing more iterations or sort of episodes of my film, Amiri Origin Stories. So please follow us on IG and follow me on Twitter to stay in touch with that. In the meantime, in between time, I'm just focused on graduating. I graduate in the spring, so I'm looking forward to having these 2 little letters behind my name. And I just want to keep doing the work, and keep connecting with amazing people such as yourself. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for following my practice and being interested in having this conversation with me.
Oh, well, no, really, thank you. It's just, we're so grateful for everything you shared. And just it's really been a pleasure. I also want to thank Amani Ju, who has been facilitating this talk behind the scenes, doing all of the tech, all the images and audio, facilitating everything that made this run so smoothly today, and the team at Breakthrough as well for supporting us. I want to thank all of you who are tuning in to this episode or watching it later. My name is Suzanne Herrera Lipuma, and it's my pleasure to be in conversation with Alexandria Eregbu. Please follow Alexandria's work. We're going to drop some links in the chat, and also follow Breakthrough at Breakthrough TV on Instagram. Stay tuned to our updates for the Our Stories in Vivid Color. We have those episodes on YouTube right now, and it's also linked in our IG bio. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Alexandria, and have a wonderful evening.